Now listen here, baby. You ever have one of those moments when someone you love says something so outrageous that you just freeze, blink twice, and wonder if they've lost all connection to the real world? That was me one fine December afternoon when my dear husband, bless his bold little heart, walked into the kitchen and said, "Honey, my ex is coming to Christmas dinner with us." Now I'm not a violent woman, but let's just say the Lord had to whisper, "Stay calm, child, I got you." Because the first thought that ran through my mind was, surely, he didn't just say that out loud in my kitchen. I turned and looked at him, calm, soft, steady, and I asked, "Oh, is that so?" And he smiled, all proud of his open-mindedness, and said, "Yes, we've stayed friends, and I thought it'd be nice to include her." Nice, that's the word he chose. See, sometimes people test you not because they mean harm, but because they have no idea the boundaries you live by. That was lesson number 1 for me. When someone shows you they're willing to cross a line, don't raise your voice. Just take note. So I smiled. Not the kind of smile that says, "I'm happy," but the kind that says, "I'm processing this foolishness, and the Lord and I will discuss it later." I said, "Well, that's thoughtful, baby. We'll make her feel right at home." He walked away relieved, thinking the storm had passed. But what he didn't know was that peace doesn't always mean agreement. Sometimes it's preparation. Now, Auntie Mae doesn't do drama, she does design. I started planning that Christmas dinner with a spirit of calm that could only come from someone who knows exactly what she's doing. I decided if we were going to do this, we were going to do it right, with grace, dignity, and just the faintest sprinkle of poetic justice. I cleaned that house top to bottom, polished the silver, fluffed the pillows. I cooked every dish from scratch. The kind of cooking that says, "You may be here, but this is my territory." I even called a few folks to join. Family friends, his mentor, and my cousin who never could hold her tongue after 2 glasses of wine. Because if we were going to have a gathering, it was going to be one for the books. Now when Christmas Day came, the house looked like a magazine spread. Warm light, cinnamon in the air, music floating soft in the background. Then she walked in. All smiles, perfume, and confidence. You could tell she thought she was walking into familiar territory. "Oh, it's so good to see you both," she said. I smiled sweetly and said, "Welcome, darling. So brave of you to come. See, revenge doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to break things or burn bridges. Sometimes it's the peace in your tone that makes people realize exactly what they've stepped into." I made sure she felt included, but never centered. My husband. Oh, he was fidgeting like a preacher at a poker table, couldn't decide whether to smile or apologize. I let him squirm. Growth requires discomfort. Dinner was served, golden turkey, buttery rolls, macaroni so rich it could have paid taxes. Conversation flowed like sweet tea, but the energy was interesting. The ex tried to reminisce, but I kept the conversation right in the present. The home we built, the memories we made, the future we planned. I wasn't cruel, baby, I was intentional. And then came my moment. I stood, glass in hand, and said, "Before we eat dessert, I'd like to make a little toast." The table quieted down, forks paused midair. I looked around, smiled, and said, "This year, I'm grateful for lessons. For peace that doesn't come from silence, but from strength. For understanding that sometimes the past belongs exactly where it came from. Behind us." That room got quiet, baby. The kind of quiet that hums with truth. My husband looked down at his plate. The ex smiled a little too tight. And me, I took a long sip and let the silence settle like a crown on my head. See, the beauty of calm revenge is that it doesn't destroy. It teaches. It sets a tone that says, "You can't shake me." After that night, things changed. My husband learned that respect isn't about asking permission. It's about knowing where the line is before you even step close to it. The ex, she found other plans next Christmas, bless her heart. And me, I learned that real power isn't in how loud you respond. It's in how gracefully you hold your ground. Researchers say people who handle conflict calmly have stronger, longer-lasting relationships. Because they choose growth over chaos. I didn't need data to tell me that, though. I felt it in my bones that night. The peace that comes when you rise above and still walk away shining. So, baby, the next time someone tests your boundaries, remember this story. You don't have to scream. You don't have to fight. Just smile that knowing smile, take a deep breath, and let your peace do the talking. Because that Christmas, my husband invited his ex to dinner, and he had no idea he was about to witness a masterclass in grace. At first, I thought he was joking. Truly, I did. I looked at him, waiting for that little smirk he always gave when he said something foolish. But no smirk came. Just that calm, confident look of a man who believed he'd said something completely reasonable. She's coming to Christmas dinner, he said again, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Who does that, baby? Who invites their ex to Christmas dinner with their current wife, like it's some kind of emotional family reunion sponsored by bad decisions? Now I'll admit, for a split second, I forgot every bit of Sunday school teaching I ever had. My hands were halfway to my hips, my eyebrows already speaking in tongues. But something deep inside me said, "Don't you do it, May. Don't you let him see you rattled." So, I took a breath. The kind of long, deep breath that stretches from your toes to your soul. He stood there waiting, smiling like a man who thought he was being progressive, saying something about maturity, and "we've stayed friends," said it would be nice. Nice, that word can be dangerous, baby. Folks love to wrap discomfort in the word nice. They call it being polite, being understanding, being grown. But sometimes nice is just a way to keep you quiet while they walk right over your peace. And that, right there, was my first lesson. When someone shows you their boundaries don't match yours, don't argue. Just observe. Because people will tell you who they are without saying a word if you pay close enough attention. So I smiled, real calm, like, not the "I'm fine" smile. "Oh no, baby. This was the "I hear you, but you're gonna learn today" smile. I said, "Oh, that's wonderful, baby. Let's make her feel right at home." He looked so relieved. You'd think I'd just agreed to bake her a birthday cake. He kissed my forehead and walked out the kitchen humming like a man who had no idea what kind of storm he'd just walked into. And me. I stood there by the counter, drying my hands, thinking, oh, this is going to be good. See, I've learned that true revenge isn't fire and fury, it's calm and control. It's grace with strategy, it's reminding folks who they're dealing with without ever raising your voice. Because when you lose your cool, they win. But when you stay composed, baby, you turn the whole situation into a stage, and you own it. Now, don't get me wrong. I wasn't about to be petty. I wasn't about to make a scene or turn Christmas into a soap opera. I'm too grown for that, but I also wasn't about to sit quietly and let someone's friendly gesture make me look like an extra in my own life. You see, people test you in small ways before they try the big ones. Today it's inviting the ex, tomorrow it's rewriting the rules of respect. That's why you have to teach people how to treat you, not with lectures, not with shouting, but with actions that say, I know my worth, and I don't rent it out. So that night, while he watched TV, I sat at the kitchen table with my tea and thought. I thought about how women for generations have been told to keep the peace, even when it costs them their dignity. How we've smiled through awkward dinners, swallowed pride to keep appearances, and called it being a good wife. But baby, there comes a time when peace stops being peace and starts being permission. And I decided I wasn't handing out permission slips anymore. I thought about my grandmother, God rest her soul. That woman never raised her voice a day in her life, but she had a way of teaching lessons that folks never forgot. She used to say, if you stay quiet long enough, fools will tell on themselves. And that's exactly what I plan to do. Stay calm, stay kind, and let time reveal who needed the lesson most. When I finally went to bed that night, I looked over at my husband, sleeping so peacefully, snoring like a man without a single worry. I just smiled to myself. Because I knew something he didn't. I knew that by saying yes to his little idea, I was setting the stage for one of the most memorable Christmases of our lives. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. Revenge, my darlings, isn't about getting even. It's about getting wise. It's about holding your peace so firmly that the world has no choice but to notice. Sometimes, the best way to teach someone respect is to let them walk right into the classroom they built themselves. And baby, come that Christmas dinner, class was about to be in session. See, Auntie Mae doesn't do chaos. She does strategy. There's a difference, baby. Chaos is loud and messy. It leaves stains you can't wash out. But strategy is quiet. It's the art of sitting still while you let wisdom do the talking. And that's exactly what I decided to do. So, I made my list, the table, perfectly set, the kind of table that makes folks sit up straighter when they walk in. I brought out the good china, the crystal glasses that only see the light of day on holidays and special occasions. The tablecloth was pressed smooth as silk, candles standing tall like they had something to prove. Every little detail whispered, "This house has order, this woman has grace." The dinner, oh, that was a masterpiece. I cooked like I was hosting the angels themselves. The turkey was seasoned to perfection, golden and proud. The macaroni and cheese had that golden crust that sings when you scoop into it. The collard greens simmered slow, just like my thoughts that week. Steady, deliberate, full of flavor and purpose. And the dessert, baby, a sweet potato pie that could bring tears to your eyes, baked with a smile and a secret extra scoop of confidence. Because sometimes a little sugar and self-assurance are all a woman needs to turn a storm into a sermon. And then there was the guest list. Oh yes, that was the real work of art. I decided if my husband could extend an invitation without consulting me, then surely I could do the same. I invited a few folks myself, people who carried stories, wisdom, and a dash of protective energy. His old mentor, for one, a man who never had much patience for foolishness and always spoke his mind. Then there was our family friend, the one who, accidentally, tells the truth when she gets excited. You know the kind, the ones who can turn a polite dinner into a testimony session without meaning to. And, of course, I invited my sister, the one with the smile that looks sweet but says, "Try me if you dare." Now understand this. I wasn't setting a trap. No, I was creating balance. I was filling that room with people who knew me, respected me, and could hold a mirror up if anyone tried to play games. Because lesson number 2, my love, is never let someone else write your story. Pick up your pen and edit the script yourself. You see, too many folks let life happen to them instead of happening through them. They let others dictate the tone, the timing, the story. But I decided right then that this Christmas dinner wasn't going to be about awkward tension or quiet resentment. It was going to be a reflection of who I am. Calm, confident, and completely unbothered. All week, as I prepared, I prayed, not for revenge, but for peace. The kind of peace that glows from the inside, that can't be shaken by someone else's choices. I asked God to help me walk in grace, not bitterness. Because I knew if I let bitterness in, it would cook right into the food. And baby, I serve nourishment, not poison. Every task I did that week was an act of reclaiming control. When I stirred the gravy, I thought about how women through generations have stirred through storms, holding families together with a wooden spoon and a steady heart. When I folded napkins, I thought about dignity. How it's not about staying silent, but about knowing when to speak and when to let your actions do the speaking for you. And when I set the chairs, I made sure mine was at the head of the table. Not out of pride, but out of reminder. That home was built with my hands, my care, my heart, and that deserves honor. By the time Christmas Eve rolled around, I felt ready. Ready in a way that didn't need validation or applause. I had turned what could have been a humiliation into a declaration, not a battle but a statement. Every detail said, I know who I am, I know what I bring, and I don't compete where I already reign. Revenge, I've learned, doesn't have to be cruel. It doesn't need to cut to be felt. Sometimes it's just showing up as the most composed version of yourself in a moment where others expected you to break. It's dressing your pain in grace, seasoning your boundaries with kindness, and serving the lesson with a smile. So when I pulled that pie out the oven, I felt something settle deep inside me. Something soft, certain, and strong. I wasn't baking for them anymore. I was baking for me. For the woman who decided not to raise her voice, not to throw a fit, but to rise above and shine right through the foolishness. Because sometimes, baby, the sweetest kind of revenge isn't cold at all. It's warm, golden, and served on a plate with love, confidence, and just a little extra cinnamon for good measure. So the evening arrives. The air outside was cold and sharp, the kind that makes your breath show and your nerves feel just a little more alive. Inside, though, my home was warm. The kind of warmth that wraps around you like a hug and smells faintly of cinnamon, pine, and peace. The candles were glowing low, the music was soft, and the table. Oh, that table. It looked like something out of a storybook. Every napkin folded just right, every fork polished until it shone. It wasn't just dinner, it was a statement. Everyone started to arrive, one by one, bringing laughter, chatter, and a few side glances. You could tell folks had heard whispers about what was coming, but no one dared ask out loud. My husband moved around the room nervously, trying to play host, and I just floated through it all, calm and collected, my heart steady as a drum. See, when you know who you are, you don't have to perform. Peace speaks loud enough on its own. Then the doorbell rang. And in she came, the ex. Lord have mercy, she walked in like she was auditioning for a Hallmark special, smiling big, hair curled tight, perfume leaving a trail that could have led a search party. She had that look. The one that says, I'm doing just fine without you. But also, notice me anyway.
Oh, it's so good to see you both,
she sang, voice sweet enough to rot teeth. My husband froze for half a second, then smiled too wide, like a man trying to make peace between two wild animals. I, on the other hand, stayed exactly where I was. Calm. Grounded. Centered. I walked up to her, poured a glass of wine, and said, Welcome, darling. It's brave of you to join us. I didn't say it with spite, I said it with grace, the kind of grace that leaves room for her to wonder if maybe, just maybe, I knew something she didn't. We all sat down, and the conversations began. Oh, baby, it was a show. My husband tried to juggle comfort like a circus act. One hand on small talk, one hand trying to keep the peace. The ex, bless her heart, tried her best to sparkle. You could tell she wanted to show how evolved she was, throwing in little stories about old memories and shared jokes, just subtle enough to test the waters. I just sat there, smiling, calm, radiant. Every word she said only reminded me that peace is the loudest presence in the room. And let me tell you something. People can feel energy louder than words. The more she tried to pull focus, the more my calm unsettled her. It's hard to compete with a woman who's at peace with herself. I wasn't there to prove a point, I was the point. As the night went on, the conversation turned to gratitude, blessings, and what everyone had learned that year. And that's when I felt it. My moment. Not for revenge, not for show, but for truth. I lifted my glass, let the room quiet down, and looked around the table. Every eye turned toward me, my husband's, nervous but curious, hers, half smiling, trying to read me. I said, This year, I'm grateful for lessons. For realizing that peace doesn't mean silence. It means strength, and for understanding that some things from the past belong exactly where they came from. The past. The words hung in the air like a soft chord that settles after a song. The only sound that followed was the faint clinking of glass as everyone took a sip. You could feel it. The shift. The air changed. My husband looked down, humbled. The ex smiled, that tight smile people use when they've been politely dismissed. And the rest of the table. They just nodded, slowly, knowingly. See, that's the thing about grace. It doesn't shout, it doesn't sting, it teaches. My words weren't sharp, but they landed. They reminded everyone, especially him, that boundaries can be beautiful, that strength doesn't need to roar to be heard. After that, the mood softened. The laughter returned, but it was lighter, more respectful. She talked less, he looked at me more, and for the first time that evening, peace. Real, deep peace filled that room. And baby, when the night was over and the dishes were cleared, my husband pulled me close and whispered, You handled that beautifully. I just smiled, kissed his cheek, and said, I know. Because I did. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't served cold. It's served warm, glowing, wrapped in poise and self-respect. It's not about proving who's right, it's about reminding everyone what right looks like. That night, I didn't need to raise my voice, I didn't need to compete, and I didn't need to win. I just needed to be still, be kind and be sure. And let me tell you, baby, there's nothing more powerful than a woman who knows her worth and keeps her peace, even when chaos comes knocking, dressed in high heels and holiday cheer. After that dinner, things changed. Not with shouting or tears, but with quiet, undeniable shifts that only a wise woman can notice. My husband, well, bless his heart, he never again suggested something that reckless. Not because I made him scared or angry, but because he finally saw the weight of intention and the beauty of patience in action. The icks. She found other plans the next year, and honestly, I thank the Lord for that. Sometimes people drift away not because you push them, but because you let your life be so full and complete that there's simply no space for disruption. And me? Oh, baby, I learned something I want to pass along to all of you. A lesson I've held close ever since. Lesson number 3: you don't have to fight to prove your worth. Your peace speaks louder than your pain. Let that sink in for a moment. We live in a world that glorifies confrontation, that tells us the only way to be seen is to argue louder, strike faster, or prove someone wrong. But here's the truth: the calm heart carries its own strength. It doesn't need witnesses. It doesn't need applause. It simply radiates power in the most profound, undeniable way. And you know what? Science agrees. Harvard's School of Public Health, bless their hearts for validating common sense, found that people who respond to emotional conflict with calm boundaries instead of aggression report 40% higher long-term satisfaction in their relationships. 40%! That's not a small number, my loves. That's proof that the quiet, steady, and deliberate path is not just noble, it's effective. People who carry themselves with grace in the face of challenges don't just survive, they thrive. They show up more fully, love more deeply, and live with a sense of freedom that those chasing revenge can never touch. Revenge doesn't always mean getting even. Oh no, child. Sometimes revenge means rising above. It means shining brighter while others fumble in their own insecurities. It means letting time do the heavy lifting, revealing who was foolish enough to test your calm, who mistook a smile for weakness, and who underestimated the quiet force of a person who knows their worth. The sweetest victories aren't loud, messy, or fleeting. They're subtle, lasting, and unforgettable. They linger in the air like the scent of cinnamon on a winter morning, a gentle reminder of what grace really looks like in action. I remember walking through the house the day after that dinner, the table finally cleared, the candles cold, and the kitchen smelling faintly of roasted turkey and the last bits of pie. I paused by the window and watched the light shift across the floor, and I felt a sense of satisfaction deeper than any applause could give, not because I had won over someone else, but because I had remained fully myself in a moment where so many would have faltered. That, my loves, is true victory. And it shows up in all parts of life, not just in holiday dinners. Perhaps it's a coworker trying to take credit for your hard work. Maybe it's a family member testing your boundaries, or a friend sends stirring drama that doesn't belong in your circle. The lesson is the same: peace isn't passive. Peace isn't weak. Peace is active, deliberate, and transformative. It's the force that turns uncomfortable moments into opportunities for wisdom, the shield that protects your joy, and the magnet that draws the right people and the right energy into your life. I want you to carry that with you every day. When someone tests you, when life tries to throw chaos into your carefully built world, don't rush to reaction. Take a breath. Hold your head high. Smile softly, with the knowledge that your calm is louder than any argument, more compelling than any insult, and far more lasting than any fleeting victory won in anger. Because in the end, rising above, standing tall, and shining your own light, that's the revenge that truly matters. So remember this story, baby. Remember the December dinner, the perfectly set table, the carefully baked pie, and the quiet power that radiated from a woman who refused to be shaken. The world will always try to test you, but your peace is your power, your shield, and your lasting triumph. And sometimes, the most unforgettable lesson a person can learn is simply that a calm, confident heart cannot be rattled. That night, the room was full of laughter, conversation, and candlelight, but the real magic was invisible. It was the unseen thread of dignity, the quiet strength of a woman who knew her worth, and the knowledge that true revenge doesn't need to fight. It simply thrives. So when you find yourself in that kitchen one day, the smell of rosemary in the air, the oven warm, the holiday lights twinkling, and someone dares to test your peace, your worth, your very love, I want you to remember this story. Remember how a simple December afternoon turned into a lesson I'll carry for the rest of my days. You see, life has a way of handing us little challenges dressed up as ordinary moments. A comment, a plan we didn't expect, a visitor who should have stayed in the past. And in those moments, it's tempting to scream. It's tempting to scheme. Lord knows, I could have done both. I could have let frustration boil over, let my hands shake as I poured my heart into angry words, or even whispered something sharp under my breath. But baby, I learned early that's not power, that's reaction. And reaction rarely serves you with dignity. So instead, I owned my power. I set the table, seasoned the turkey, baked that pie with an extra scoop of confidence, and let my calm speak louder than any words could. I chose grace over grit, patience over pride, and preparation over panic, and you know what happened? Everything shifted. Not just in that room, but in me. I felt a sense of freedom, like a weight I didn't know I was carrying had lifted, and I realized something powerful. The only thing that can truly shake your joy is the permission you give it. Revenge, when it's done right, isn't about hurting someone else. That's the mistake so many folks make. They think revenge has to sting, to bite, to burn. But real revenge, the kind that stays with you long after the moment has passed, is about healing yourself so completely, so thoroughly, that their chaos can't touch you anymore. It's about creating a life, a presence, a peace so solid and so radiant that others' attempts to disrupt it are like drops of water against a rock. They roll right off. I want you to picture it with me, baby. The ex at the dinner table, smiling, trying to reclaim a spotlight that was never hers to begin with. My husband, shifting nervously, hoping everyone felt comfortable. And me, calm, poised, radiating quiet strength with every word, every gesture. The room felt lighter, warmer, more authentic. Because when you own your power, it doesn't just protect you. It transforms everything around you. And that, my loves, is the secret. Peace is the most elegant revenge of all. It doesn't shout, it doesn't cut. It doesn't need drama or deceit. It simply is. It is the confidence in your own worth, the patience to let others' antics fade on their own, and the grace to carry yourself in a way that shows everyone, including yourself, exactly who you are. So when life hands you a test, someone stepping into your space, challenging your boundaries, or trying to rattle the calm you've fought so hard to build, remember this: your power is in your choice. You can react, or you can rise. You can argue, or you can embody the lesson. You can stew in frustration, or you can let your peace speak louder than any insult. And trust me, baby, when you choose the latter, the results are sweeter than any victory won through anger. Because here's the truth, plain and simple: a life lived with integrity, with calm confidence, and with self-respect is magnetic. People notice it. They may try to test it, poke at it, or even dismiss it, but it holds. It shines. It teaches without saying a word. And when they leave your table, whether metaphorically or literally, they carry with them the memory of a woman who refused to be shaken, a woman who chose herself first, a woman who understood that her joy was untouchable. And baby, that's a lesson worth more than any argument, any drama, or any fleeting satisfaction. Because at the end of the day, you don't need to prove yourself. You just need to be yourself. Full, radiant, and unshakable. And when you do that, my loves, you've already won. So I tell you this with all the warmth I have left in my heart. My husband invited his ex to Christmas dinner, and he had no idea that he'd just RSVP'd to a masterclass in grace. Smile, lift your tea, and let that laughter and applause fill the room, because sometimes the sweetest victories are the ones you carry quietly in your heart.